Have you ever stopped to wonder, as the years pass, what matters in life? Is it the accolades, the busy schedules, the constant pursuit of more success, more possessions, more validation? Or is it something simpler, something more meaningful that perhaps we've been overlooking all along? If you're over 60, or even if you're approaching those golden years, you might already feel this shift happening. You're not alone. In this video, I'm going to share the profound lessons I've learned after turning 71. About trust, relationships, and the unexpected joy found in slowing down and embracing simplicity. It's not just about surviving old age. It's about truly thriving and rediscovering what it means to live with purpose, peace, and authenticity. By the end of this video, you'll have a deeper understanding of why life doesn't need to be as complicated as we often make it. You'll hear about how I found unexpected fulfillment in solitude, why trust evolves, and how the pandemic revealed truths that many of us overlook in our everyday rush. This video is about reclaiming control over your time, your relationships, and your inner peace. If you've been questioning your purpose or wondering how to navigate the changes that come with getting older, this video could provide the clarity you've been searching for. I'll share the practical wisdom I've gained, so you can start embracing a simpler, more meaningful life today. One that's filled with peace, deeper connections, and a renewed sense of self-worth. So stick with me until the end, because if you're ready to experience a deeper connection with yourself and others, this video might just change the way you approach the second half of your life. If you are not subscribed, I recommend subscribing and activating the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support means a lot to me, and if you enjoyed this video, you can help me continue spreading the valuable lessons by liking and sharing it. A lifetime of lessons. A lifetime is not just years, but a mosaic of stories. Some that we hold close to our hearts, others we'd rather bury deep in the past, but all of them woven together to shape the essence of who we become. Now, at 71, I find myself often revisiting those stories. And what stands out most are not the grand milestones that society holds in such high regard. Weddings, promotions, anniversaries, or accolades. But rather the quieter, seemingly insignificant moments that left the deepest marks on my soul. These moments, which at the time might have seemed trivial, have been the ones that carried the most profound lessons. Ones that reverberate through every fiber of my being. The lessons I've learned over the decades, often at the cost of my peace, have gently but unrelentingly shifted the way I perceive the world and my place within it. When I was younger, I was naive enough to believe that everyone carried goodness within them. I believed that with enough kindness, patience, and effort, I could nurture relationships, build bridges, and create lasting connections. But life has a way of revealing the truth in its own time, and I soon learned that not everyone has the same heart, the same capacity for empathy, or the same willingness to give back what you so freely offer. I've been betrayed by people I trusted, taken advantage of by those I opened my heart to, and left questioning myself, wondering where I went wrong in my understanding of others. I wondered if I had been too idealistic, too quick to believe in the best of people. Yet, through it all, I didn't let bitterness take root. No, the pain of these betrayals, as hard as it was to bear, became a teacher in its own right. It taught me that not every battle is worth fighting, and not every connection is worth keeping. I realized that people come into our lives for one of three reasons. A reason, a season, or a lifetime. Trying to hold on to someone who was only meant to be part of a fleeting chapter is like desperately clinging to a page in a book you've already read. It's painful to let go, but sometimes it's the most freeing thing we can do for ourselves. Clinging to what was never meant to last only hinders our ability to embrace what lies ahead. As I look back, I see so clearly how much of my energy I poured into trying to please others, to fit into spaces that never truly aligned with who I was, and to meet expectations that were never truly mine to fulfill. I gave of myself until there was nothing left to give. I thought this was what it meant to be a good person, to always put others first, to always sacrifice my own needs for the sake of harmony and approval. But now, with the wisdom of age, I understand something far more profound. Taking care of yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and the most beautiful, meaningful relationships are built on the foundation of mutual respect, reciprocity, and shared effort. True connection comes not from endless self-sacrifice, but from finding a balance where both people are nourished, and both people grow. These lessons, painful yet transformative, have taught me that the path to peace and contentment is not about holding on tightly to the past, nor about trying to please everyone around you. It's about learning to release what no longer serves you, embracing who you are, and realizing that the most precious relationship you'll ever have is the one you cultivate with yourself. Changing definitions of happiness. As I sit quietly and reflect on the years that have passed, I am overwhelmed by the profound shift in my understanding of happiness. It's almost as if I've lived through different lifetimes, each one shaping my perception of what it truly means to feel fulfilled. In my youth, happiness was something loud, brash, and exhilarating. It was the heady rush of laughter that echoed through a crowded room, the adrenaline that surged with each new adventure, and the intoxicating pride that accompanied every milestone I reached. Happiness was external then, measured in applause, recognition, and the validation that came from achievements. It was fleeting, like a firework that blazed brightly in the night sky, only to fade away just as quickly. But now, as the years have unfolded, my definition of happiness has softened, deepened, and quieted. I find joy in the subtle, the simple, and the stillness that comes with age. There is an undeniable peace in sitting on my porch, a warm cup of tea cradled in my hands, as I watch the sun slowly dip below the horizon. The world may be rushing on, filled with noise and haste, but I have learned to slow down, to savor the tender moments that no longer demand attention but simply are. Happiness now is not a loud declaration, but a whisper, a gentle comfort. It's the quiet satisfaction of knowing that I no longer feel obligated to fill my life with endless obligations, and that I do not owe anyone my time or energy unless I choose to give it. The freedom to choose, without guilt, without pressure, has become one of the most profound joys I've ever known. As the years have taught me more about myself, I've come to understand the sacredness of boundaries. This, I believe, is a lesson I should have embraced much earlier. Boundaries aren't walls designed to shut people out. They are shields that protect the most vulnerable parts of ourselves. They are the invisible lines that preserve our peace, our well-being, and our sense of self amidst the noise and demands of the world. I used to think that boundaries were selfish, that drawing a line meant I was shutting others out, and that it was an act of rejection. But with time, I've realized just how essential they are. Setting boundaries isn't about being distant. It's about honoring your own needs and giving others the chance to honor them too. It's a gentle act of self-respect, of saying, I am worthy of space, of rest, of joy on my terms. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. There was a time when I believed that saying no made me a bad friend, a bad partner, or even a bad person. I thought that by denying requests, I was somehow failing those I loved. But now, I know better. Now, I understand that saying no is one of the most loving acts you can offer both yourself and those around you. It's a quiet affirmation that your peace is just as important as anyone else's. It's an act of kindness, not only to yourself but to those who will learn, through your example, to respect their limits as well. The value of true friendships. As the years pass, time has an uncanny way of stripping away the superficial layers of life, leaving only what truly matters. When I reflect on the friendships I hold dear today, I realize they are fewer but infinitely richer. These are not the fleeting acquaintances of youth, but the deeply rooted bonds that have withstood life's most testing storms. These are the people who have stood beside me when the world seemed dark, whose laughter has echoed through my happiest moments, and whose acceptance of me, flaws and all, has been unwavering. In their presence, I've discovered that love and loyalty do not need to be abundant to be meaningful. They only need to be real. Gone are the days when I felt the pressure to collect acquaintances or keep relationships alive simply out of habit or obligation. I've learned that not all connections are meant to last forever. Some relationships fade, some unravel with time, and some reach their natural end, and that's okay. What I cherish now are the deep, unbreakable threads that tie me to those who have truly understood me, who have walked beside me through life's ups and downs, and who have chosen to stay, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. It's in these relationships that I've come to understand that quality will always far outweigh quantity. Through the wisdom of my years, I've realized that life is far too precious to waste on worrying about who likes me, who doesn't, or who judges my decisions. I've learned that I don't need to please everyone, nor do I need everyone's approval. At this stage in my life, I've come to the liberating conclusion that I don't need the validation of others to feel complete. I like who I am, I accept myself fully, and that is more than enough. The freedom that comes with self-acceptance is immeasurable, and it has allowed me to step into my truth with strength and peace. I've become more comfortable in my skin, more at peace with my solitude. Solitude, once a space that felt foreign, even lonely, has become a sanctuary, a sacred place where I can hear the whispers of my own heart, where I can listen to the soft murmur of my thoughts and dreams. It's in these quiet moments that I've discovered the clarity I've been searching for all along. And so, no, I don't hate people. Far from it. But I've learned something far more profound. Not everyone is meant to be in my life, and that's perfectly all right. There is a beauty in discerning who should walk beside me on this journey, and an even greater beauty in letting go of those who no longer serve my soul. The time I have left is both finite and precious, and I refuse to waste it on anything that doesn't nourish my spirit. I choose to spend it cultivating peace, joy, and the sweet simplicity of being. The people I hold close, the moments I savor, and the inner peace I've fought so hard to find. These are the treasures that will fill the remainder of my days with meaning. The beauty of solitude. There is a quiet grace, a subtle beauty in solitude, one that I never truly understood until the years began to weigh heavier on my shoulders. When I was younger, the mere thought of being alone felt like a weight too suffocating to bear. I feared it, interpreted it as loneliness, a hollow emptiness that threatened to swallow me whole. It felt like isolation, a cruel separation from the world, a place where connection and purpose were mere dreams. But now, as I stand at the threshold of my 71st year, I see solitude through a lens that is softened by experience, one that reveals its richness, its depth, and its undeniable peace. Solitude is not a void. It is a sacred space, a refuge where peace dwells like a warm, comforting embrace. It is where I rediscovered myself after years of being consumed by the noise of the world, the relentless hum of expectations, obligations, and the constant demands of others. In the silence, I have learned to treasure what once seemed like emptiness. It is in the stillness, in the quiet moments, that I have found my true self again, a self I had almost forgotten in the frenzy of life. I no longer hear the clamor of outside voices, but instead, I've learned to listen to the whisper of my own heart, speaking truths I had long buried under layers of distraction. There is something profoundly healing, almost sacred, about sitting alone with your thoughts, allowing them to unfurl slowly like a delicate flower. In those moments of solitude, the chaos of the world begins to fade, and what remains is a piercing clarity, a sense of understanding that can only be found when the world is still. It is in those quiet moments that I have come to truly know myself, the desires of my soul, the values that guide my life, and the things I must let go of to feel truly free. Solitude, in its purest form, has become my mirror, reflecting the truths that I had been too busy to see before. I now realize that much of the busyness of my younger years was a way to avoid confronting myself, to run from the silent spaces where I had no distractions to shield me from the truth. It's all too easy to fill our lives with the noise of obligations, with the presence of people who demand our energy, or with the hustle of chasing dreams that were never truly ours. But when the house grows quiet, when there are no voices but my own, when I am left with nothing but my thoughts, I am confronted with the one person I can never escape, myself. At first, that confrontation was unsettling. It felt like standing alone in the dark, unsure of what I might find. But with time, I came to realize that this solitude was not something to fear, it was something to embrace. Slowly, it became a comfort, a place of refuge where I could rest in the purest form of my own company. In solitude, I have learned the joy of doing things simply for the sake of my happiness. Not for anyone else, not to meet some external expectation, but for the sheer delight of the experience itself. It is a freedom so pure, so liberating, that nothing else can compare. There is a freedom in solitude that social interactions can never offer. In those moments alone, there is no pressure to perform, no roles to play. I am not the caregiver, the friend, the entertainer, or the problem solver. I do not need to be everything to everyone. In solitude, I am simply me, unadorned, unpretentious, and free to exist as I am, in my natural state. There are no expectations to meet, no demands to fulfill, and no one else's needs to anticipate. I can simply be. It is a quiet kind of power, one that can only be understood by those who have embraced the solitude of their own company. This does not mean that I have turned my back on relationships. I still cherish the love of family, the camaraderie of true friends, the depth of meaningful connections. But these relationships have transformed in their nature. I no longer feel the need to fill every moment with company, nor do I chase after interactions that drain me or leave me feeling empty. I no longer engage in social obligations out of a sense of guilt or fear of rejection. Now, I choose my interactions carefully, with a deep awareness of their value. I prioritize quality over quantity, and depth over surface-level exchanges. And in between those moments of connection, I retreat into the sanctuary of my solitude to recharge, reflect, and savor the quiet, sacred joys that life offers when we are still enough to notice them. In solitude, I have come to understand that it is not loneliness that we must fear, but the absence of true self-awareness. It is only in silence that we find the space to reconnect with our most authentic selves, and in that connection, we discover the boundless beauty of simply being. Socializing feels different now. There was a time, not too long ago, when socializing was as second nature to me as breathing, effortless, instinctual, a vital part of my existence. I reveled in connection, basking in the warmth of shared laughter, the glow of mutual understanding. I sought the company of others like a thirsty soul in search of water, finding fulfillment in the embrace of friends, family, and even fleeting encounters with strangers. Those moments were rich with life, and I felt alive and vibrant, as though the very act of being around others gave me a sense of purpose. But over time, gradually, almost imperceptibly, everything changed. At 71, I've come to recognize a profound shift in how I experience socializing. It's no longer a simple joy, nor is it something that fills me with the same eager anticipation it once did. Instead, it feels different, almost foreign, as though the rhythm of connection itself has mutated with age, leaving behind a quieter, more introspective version of me. It's not that I've grown weary of people or turned away from the world, but rather that my relationship with socializing has transformed into something more deliberate and more cautious. In my earlier years, social interactions were the pulse of my daily life. I was constantly on the go, attending work meetings, joining family gatherings, catching up with friends, and participating in community events. The world was a whirlwind of faces and voices, and I reveled in the hustle and bustle. I never once questioned whether these interactions were nourishing me or simply filling the space between moments. I was too busy to notice, too caught up in the idea that busyness and connection were the true markers of a fulfilled life. There was an intoxicating comfort in being constantly surrounded, in being needed. But now, I see things through a different lens, one sharpened by the passage of time. I understand, with a clarity I didn't possess in my youth, that not all connections are created equal, and not all relationships are worth maintaining. The years have given me wisdom, but they've also made me more protective of my energy. I've come to realize that there is a silent cost to superficial exchanges, an emotional toll that quietly chips away at my well-being. It's not a price I'm willing to pay anymore. My time and energy are precious, and I am more selective about where and with whom I invest them. I've grown acutely attuned to the subtleties of human interaction, the quiet manipulations that used to slip under my radar, the insincerities that were once masked by politeness, the unspoken expectations lurking beneath the surface. I can sense, now more than ever, when someone's words are hollow or when their intentions are less than genuine. What once went unnoticed now stands out like a blaring siren, and it's made me more discerning and more careful in who I allow into my space. The trust one once freely extended to others is now a precious gift, one I offer only to those who've proven themselves worthy. The openness that used to flow so naturally has been replaced by a guardedness born of experience. Socializing, I've learned, takes more than just time. It takes energy. The kind of energy I no longer have in endless supply. Every interaction, no matter how small, requires a part of me, and I've come to realize that I cannot afford to give that part away to every fleeting encounter. The weight of the world's demands, of expectations, of social norms, has shifted, and what once felt like a joyous obligation now feels like a precious resource to be guarded fiercely. And so, I've learned to approach socializing with a new sense of intention, not for the sake of appearance or societal obligation, but because the few genuine connections I still make feel like treasures, rare, sacred, and deeply fulfilling. These are the moments that nourish me, that give me strength, and I cherish them, perhaps now more than ever. I no longer seek out crowds or endless engagement. Instead, I seek meaning, depth, and authenticity, things that are harder to find but infinitely more rewarding. Family moments, though fleeting and often escaping my grasp like wisps of smoke, hold a depth of meaning that larger, more formal gatherings can never replicate. In the quiet corners of shared laughter, soft glances exchanged over a meal or the gentle embrace of a loved one, I find a raw authenticity that fills my soul in ways I never thought possible. These intimate moments, so simple, yet so powerful, remind me that connection doesn't require grandeur or elaborate gestures. It doesn't need to be adorned in the trappings of social performance. Sometimes, the smallest acts, an unexpected touch, a knowing smile, a whispered word, carry the heaviest weight. In this phase of life, I've come to realize that socializing is no longer about the sheer volume of interactions, the number of faces I greet, or the number of people filling my days. It's about the quiet richness of the bonds I choose to nurture, about finding the profound beauty in a few treasured souls rather than the fleeting approval of a crowd. At 71, I no longer seek to fill the silence with noise. Instead, I yearn for depth, for authenticity, for moments that resonate beyond the surface. This is a quieter, more deliberate way of being, one that feels infinitely truer to the person I've become. And while some may mistake this shift for withdrawal, for stepping back from the world, I see it as a natural evolution, a graceful, intentional retreat into myself, a return to the essence of who I am. I've come to understand that not everyone will grasp this change, and that's okay. Not everyone will understand why I no longer chase after every social invitation, or why I no longer feel the need to surround myself with endless distractions. But this, too, is part of my journey. This is the unfolding of a new chapter, one where peace, stillness, and presence outweigh the chaotic rush of mere interaction. It is a phase of life where the quality of relationships is treasured over their quantity, where intimacy and vulnerability are more precious than social approval. And in this newfound way of relating to others, I found a quiet, profound sense of peace, purpose, and authenticity. Things that are now, more than ever, the foundation of my existence. I am deeply grateful for this gift, for the wisdom that has come with the years, and for the gentle understanding that has shaped me into the person I am today. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Trust, too, has transformed over the years. Once a currency freely spent in the innocent belief that the world was, at its core, a kind and honest place. In my younger years, trust seemed an effortless extension of who I was, an unspoken belief that others would offer the same openness, kindness, and integrity that I tried to embody. But life, as it often does, has a way of revealing the fragile, delicate nature of trust. How it can be shattered in a single, thoughtless moment, how it can fade like the first light of dawn when we least expect it. At 71, I now hold trust close, almost protectively, having learned through years of betrayal, disappointment, and heartbreak that it is a treasure worth guarding. Trust hasn't disappeared from my life. No, it has evolved and matured into something more deliberate, more intentional. It's no longer given freely to every passing face or every word spoken with a smile. Now, trust is earned, tested, and carefully tended to. I've experienced the sting of those I believed would stand beside me only to have them vanish when life became too complicated, too inconvenient. I've watched promises crumble like dust in the wind, only to discover that the faces I once held dear could be capable of hurt, indifference, and even betrayal. These were not isolated experiences. They are woven into the very fabric of the human experience, universal in their sting and their inevitability. But each betrayal, each disappointment, left a mark, a scar that reminds me that trust, once fractured, is never quite the same again. Over time, I began to understand the deeper truth beneath these painful lessons. The more I trusted indiscriminately, the more vulnerable I became. And the more I opened myself to others without caution, the more easily I was exposed to those whose intentions were not aligned with my own, those who might not have had malice in their hearts but whose actions, whether born of thoughtlessness or selfishness, left me feeling raw and exposed. The wound to my trust wasn't always intentional. It was often the result of ignorance, carelessness, or simple self-interest. But no matter the cause, the outcome was the same. My faith in the goodness of others was eroded, and the cracks began to show. Through this journey, I have learned the delicate art of discerning who is worthy of my trust and who will only bring further hurt. Trust has become something far more sacred, more precious, and infinitely more fragile, yet it is still a gift I am willing to give, just not as recklessly as I once did. These experiences have profoundly shaped me, teaching me the invaluable art of discernment. I no longer offer my trust as freely as I once did. Trust has become something that must be earned through consistent actions, not just words. This doesn't mean that I'm consumed by skepticism or that I'm quick to assume the worst of others. It simply means I've learned to be patient, to observe, and to let time reveal the truth of a person's character before I open my heart fully. It's a more deliberate, measured process now, a slower one, yes, but also a safer one. In this way, I've found that the relationships I build now are founded not on assumptions, but on a bedrock of mutual respect, authenticity, and an understanding that trust, once broken, is not easily rebuilt. Along this journey, I've come to understand something vital. Not everyone can meet the same standard of trustworthiness, and that's okay. This realization is not a judgment, but rather an observation shaped by the complexities of human nature. Some people, for reasons beyond my understanding, struggle to be consistent, reliable, or honest. Others may have the best of intentions but simply lack the emotional tools necessary to follow through. And while it used to fill me with frustration and disappointment, I've now learned to release any lingering resentment. Instead of holding on to what cannot be changed, I focus on surrounding myself with those whose values align with mine, those who invest in our connection, and who reciprocate the trust one extends. It has been one of the most freeing and affirming choices I've made. At this stage of my life, I no longer feel the pressure to seek trust from everyone I meet. I've intentionally cultivated a small circle, those who have stood the test of time, and whose actions have repeatedly proven their worth. These relationships are my sanctuary, the sacred spaces where I can let down my guard without fear of betrayal. With them, I can be my true self, vulnerable and open, knowing that they will handle my heart with care. These people remind me that trust, while fragile, can be incredibly resilient when nurtured with patience, kindness, and mutual understanding. Yet, even within this inner circle, I've learned to balance trust with an equally important lesson: self-reliance. Life, with all its twists and turns, has shown me that, ultimately, the one person I can always count on, without question, is myself. This is not to say that I've closed myself off from others or withdrawn from the world. Rather, it means I've developed an inner strength, a quiet resilience that allows me to weather life's disappointments without being crushed by them. Trusting myself has been one of the greatest gifts that age has bestowed upon me, and it's a gift I wish I had embraced much sooner. Trust, too, has taken on a different form now. My priorities have shifted, and I no longer feel the need to place my faith in everyone I meet, nor do I feel obligated to maintain relationships that no longer serve me or that have consistently shown themselves to be toxic or draining. I no longer hand out second chances to those who have proven unworthy of my trust. This isn't about harboring grudges or unforgiveness. It's about fiercely protecting my peace. My time, my energy, and my emotional well-being are precious commodities, and I choose to spend them with people who uplift me, who enrich my life, and who offer the same depth of care and attention that I give them. I've learned that, at this stage, it's not about the quantity of relationships, but the quality, and those who truly matter will make that abundantly clear with their actions. At 71, I've come to understand that trust is not just a simple act. It is a sacred bond, a delicate thread that connects us to others in ways that are both profound and fragile. Trust is not something to be given lightly or freely, nor is it something to take for granted. It's a gift, one that requires careful consideration, an offering wrapped in vulnerability and care. To give someone your trust is to share a piece of yourself, to open your heart and your life, knowing that it could be cherished or broken. Trust, once given, is not something you can easily take back. And throughout my life, I've learned that it must be treated with the utmost respect, because once lost, it's not always so easy to regain. The journey to this understanding, to the wisdom that comes with discerning who is worthy of your trust, has been fraught with both pain and revelation. I've learned the hard way that trust cannot be rushed, and it certainly cannot be earned through words alone. It's a slow, gradual process that builds over time, brick by brick, often through actions that speak louder than any promise. I've given my trust before, at times without thinking, believing that others were deserving of it simply because they had shown me kindness or shared in moments of vulnerability. But the reality is that trust is more than just a reflection of the kindness you receive. It is an ongoing process of mutual understanding, respect, and care. To trust someone is to allow them into your inner world, to expose your deepest fears, your wounds, and your dreams, and to hope they will protect those sacred spaces with honor. But there's also the recognition that no one is perfect, and sometimes, the ones we trust will falter. The key is whether they rise again, whether they rebuild what was broken, and whether we can find it within ourselves to forgive and trust once more. This understanding has been hard-won, shaped by years of experiences, some beautiful, others heartbreaking. Each lesson along the way, every betrayal or moment of disappointment, has deepened my understanding of what trust truly is. However, the wisdom that comes with aging has also taught me that while trust may become harder to give with time when it is earned, it becomes more meaningful and more valuable. It's a rare gift that, once offered, feels like a powerful declaration, that despite all the uncertainty, despite the heartache and the loss, we are still capable of connection, of seeing one another through the lens of honesty and empathy. Trust, in the end, is a choice we make, to be vulnerable, to open ourselves to others despite the risks, and to believe that there is still goodness in the world, even when the evidence is fleeting. And then came the pandemic, an event that upended our lives in ways none of us could have predicted. For many, the pandemic was a moment of profound loss. Loss of normalcy, of routine, of connection. But for me, at 71, it also became a paradoxical gift wrapped in uncertainty and fear. It forced all of us into stillness, into a space where the usual noise and distractions of daily life came to a screeching halt. The world around us seemed to shrink, and in that shrinking, I found an unexpected sense of clarity. The pause gave me the chance to truly listen to myself, to hear the whispers of my own heart, to reflect on what mattered. It felt as though, for the first time in decades, I had the opportunity to stop and evaluate my life, reconsider my priorities, and face the truth about my desires and fears. Before the pandemic, my life, like so many others, had been defined by a constant rhythm of movement, appointments, errands, visits, phone calls, and the ever-present hum of busyness. Even in retirement, I was rarely still. There was always something to do, someone to see, some responsibility that needed tending. In some ways, it felt like I was simply moving from one task to the next, not fully engaging with each moment, but rather trying to stay ahead of the clock, always anticipating the next demand. But when the pandemic hit, all of that came to a screeching halt. The world outside became eerily quiet, and with it, the noise in my own life began to fade away. At first, it was unsettling, even terrifying. I had no idea how to navigate this sudden, overwhelming silence. The stillness felt unnatural, like an emptiness that stretched endlessly in front of me. I was forced to confront the fact that, for so long, I had filled my life with distractions rather than looking inward. And now, in the absence of external noise, I had no choice but to face myself, alone, in a world that seemed to be standing still. But as the days turned into weeks and then months, I began to see this enforced quiet from a new perspective. I began to notice things I had long overlooked, the way the sunlight filtered through my windows, casting soft shadows across the walls, the rhythm of birdsong that filled the air outside, sweet and persistent, the deep, steady rise and fall of my breath as I sat alone, reflecting on the life I had lived and the life I still had ahead of me. These seemingly small, simple moments, which had once been background noise in the rush of daily life, began to feel sacred, like gifts from the universe. I found beauty in the most unexpected places. The absence of constant activity created space for deeper reflection, for a more meaningful connection with myself. For the first time in years, I began to ask myself the tough questions. What do I want the rest of my life to look like? What do I truly value? What am I willing to let go of to live with greater intention? And as I answered those questions, the stillness revealed something even more profound. The realization that life is not always about doing, but about being. I didn't need to fill every moment with activity or distraction to feel fulfilled. It was in the quiet that I began to rediscover my peace, my sense of purpose. I had spent so many years chasing after the future, always looking ahead, always striving for something more, that I had forgotten to appreciate the present moment, to truly savor the beauty of what was right in front of me. The pandemic may have robbed us of many things: freedom, comfort, and connection, but it also allowed me to slow down, recalibrate, and reconnect with myself. It was in this stillness that I rediscovered the joy of being present, of finding richness in simplicity, and of embracing the truth that we don't always need answers, only the courage to sit with the questions. Life's most profound moments are often the quietest ones, and it is in these moments that I found the courage to trust again. Not just others, but myself. I found the strength to embrace the unknown, to walk through the uncertainty with an open heart, ready to trust once more, knowing that even in a world that often feels fragmented, there is always room for hope, healing, and connection. The constant, unrelenting noise of the world, the ceaseless demands, the distractions, the never-ending stream of expectations, had always been there, a constant companion that I never quite noticed until it was gone. The hustle of daily life, the pressure to stay connected, to be productive, to keep up with the world's expectations, had created a fog around me. I didn't realize how suffocating it had become until the noise abruptly stopped. When the world came to a halt, when everything slowed down and the relentless hum of activity was muted by the pandemic, something profound happened within me. It was as though the universe, in its infinite wisdom, had pressed pause, and for the first time in years, I could hear my thoughts. In that silence, I found peace. Peace so deep, so profound, that I hadn't even known how desperately I needed it. The world had drowned out my inner voice for so long that I had forgotten what it felt like to be fully present with myself. Now, in the stillness, I was reintroduced to my soul. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. The pandemic, with all its heartache, confusion, and fear, forced me to confront the fragility of life in a way that no other event had before. It didn't just change the way I lived, it changed the way I saw everything. The very fabric of my existence was altered, woven anew by the threads of isolation and uncertainty. One of the most significant shifts came in the way I viewed relationships. In a world where social distancing became the norm and physical touch was discouraged, I could no longer rely on the traditional ways I had always connected with others. The familiar rhythms of family dinners, spontaneous meetups with friends, even the casual conversations with a stranger in the checkout line, they all disappeared. At first, this isolation felt like an insurmountable loss. The familiar faces, the reassuring hugs, the shared laughter, it all vanished, leaving behind a gaping void that was impossible to ignore. It was a strange, unsettling feeling to be so alone. At first, I struggled with it. I could feel the emptiness creep in during those long, quiet evenings when the absence of human presence felt like a heavy weight pressing down on my chest. I longed for the normalcy of a world filled with human interaction, for the connections that had once felt so natural and effortless. The initial months of solitude felt like a cruel punishment. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, a shift began to take place. It wasn't that I didn't miss people. I did, desperately, but in the quiet, I began to understand something new about myself. I realized that I didn't need constant interaction to feel connected. The world had conditioned me to think that connection only existed through face-to-face encounters, and that the essence of friendship and love was found in physical proximity. But the pandemic shattered that illusion. In the absence of the usual forms of connection, I began to discover the richness of deeper, more intentional relationships. A simple phone call from a dear friend became a lifeline, a thread that held me close to the outside world. A letter from a loved one arrived like a piece of their heart in written form, connecting us across the miles with an intimacy that felt almost sacred. Even the quiet moments I spent alone, whether in prayer, reflection, or simply enjoying the stillness, became profound sources of connection. These moments, these seemingly insignificant acts of communication and self-reflection, were filled with more depth and meaning than the fleeting exchanges I had once relied on. The pandemic, in its unyielding force, had stripped away everything that wasn't essential, leaving only the barest truths behind: authenticity, sincerity, and love. It showed me that connection wasn't about proximity or quantity. It was about the quality of the bond, the genuine exchange between hearts, and the moments of raw vulnerability shared between two people. And perhaps most surprisingly, it taught me that I didn't need anyone else to complete me. In the isolation, I discovered the immense joy of my own company. Before the pandemic, I had often avoided being alone. There was always a fear of loneliness, a nagging worry that without the presence of others, I might lose a piece of myself. I had filled my life with activities, distractions, and external validation, afraid to face the stillness within. But the pandemic forced me into solitude in a way I couldn't escape. And in that solitude, I came to realize something profound. I was enough, just as I was. For the first time, I truly learned to enjoy my presence. I found joy in the simplest things: a quiet cup of tea, the warmth of the sun on my face, the rhythmic sound of my breath as I meditated. These small, everyday moments, which I had once rushed through or overlooked, became treasures in a world that had slowed down. I no longer needed constant external stimulation to feel fulfilled. I was content with the simplicity of being, with the quiet richness of my thoughts, with the gentle flow of time that didn't demand anything of me. This newfound love for solitude didn't just transform my relationship with myself, it also reshaped the way I approached the world outside. I stopped feeling the pressure to say yes to every invitation, to fill my days with endless activity to prove my worth, or to avoid the discomfort of doing nothing. I had spent so many years measuring my value by how busy I was, and by how much I could accomplish in a given day. But now, I felt no need to keep up with the frantic pace of modern life. I embraced the freedom to choose how I spent my time, to say no when it felt right, and to say yes to what truly mattered. I became more selective and more intentional in my decisions. I no longer felt obligated to be everywhere, do everything, or please everyone. Instead, I began to curate my life with care, choosing experiences and people that nurtured me rather than drained me. The pandemic, in all its heartbreak and uncertainty, gave me a gift I never expected: the opportunity to slow down and truly see my life. It offered me a chance to evaluate what truly mattered, what I wanted to hold on to, and what I needed to let go of. In a world that relentlessly pushes us to keep moving, to constantly strive for more, the pandemic reminded me that I don't have to race against the clock. I can choose to live at my own pace, to embrace the stillness that so often feels elusive in a busy world. It taught me that I can create my sense of fulfillment, not by doing more, but by doing less, by simplifying my life, by focusing on what is truly important, and by nurturing the connections that nourish my soul. As the world begins to move again, as the noise starts to rise once more, I carry the lessons of this time with me. The pandemic may have separated us physically, but it brought me closer to myself. It gave me the space to reflect, to reevaluate, and to reconnect with a person I had almost forgotten in the chaos of life. It taught me to cherish the quiet, to find beauty in solitude, and to give thanks for the relationships that truly matter. In many ways, the pandemic was not just a time of loss, it was a time of profound discovery, a time of awakening to the deeper truths of life. It was a chance to reimagine what it means to live a life of meaning, connection, and peace. And now, as I look forward, I know that I will carry these lessons with me, gently holding them close as I continue on my journey. Rediscovering what truly matters has been a slow, unfolding process. It didn't happen all at once, but rather over time, through reflection, through mistakes, and through the quiet wisdom that only age and experience can bring. And in that wisdom, I have found my greatest joy, a life that is simple, yet deeply meaningful. A life that is rich in connection, but not defined by it. A life that is lived at my own pace, in alignment with my truest self. In my younger years, I was consumed by the belief that success was something tangible, something that could be neatly measured. Achievements in my career, financial stability, recognition in the eyes of others, and the acquisition of material possessions were the markers I thought would define my worth, my happiness, and ultimately, my sense of fulfillment. I poured so much of myself into striving for these external accolades, convinced that if I could just reach the next milestone, I would finally find the contentment I had been searching for. I spent years working tirelessly, pushing myself to climb higher and higher, thinking that each promotion, each increase in my bank account, and each new label of success would fill the void I often felt deep inside. But, looking back now, with the wisdom that only time and experience can offer, I realize how misguided I was. Despite all of the accomplishments and external validations, there was always an emptiness that couldn't be filled. The things I had worked so hard to attain, though undeniably important in their own right, never truly touched the deeper layers of my soul. They were like temporary fixes to an aching, unaddressed part of me. The truth is that fulfillment isn't found in outward success or in trying to meet society's ever-shifting standards of achievement. It is, in fact, only discovered when we shift our focus inward, when we stop chasing what we think we should want, and instead, we listen to what our hearts truly yearn for. It wasn't until I allowed myself to let go of the need for external validation, until I finally stopped living for the approval of others, that I began to understand what it truly means to be fulfilled. This was a hard lesson to learn. It meant abandoning a life I thought was successful in favor of embracing something much simpler, much more profound. But it also meant facing the vulnerability of being honest with myself, confronting the fact that the things I once thought would bring me peace never truly did. It wasn't until I made the conscious choice to stop seeking constant approval from others that I began to discover the kind of fulfillment that goes beyond what can be seen or measured. The more I focused on nurturing my inner world, the more I came to understand that happiness doesn't lie in the accumulation of achievements, but in the quiet, often overlooked moments that make life so profoundly meaningful. Now, at 71, I find myself standing at a place in life where I no longer care about impressing anyone. I have shed the need to fit into the mold that society tried to cast me in. I no longer feel the pressure to conform to expectations, whether they come from the world around me or the internalized ideas of success I once held. The desire to prove my worth through possessions, experiences, or outward accomplishments has faded into the background. Instead, I find myself deeply appreciating the beauty and simplicity, the unspoken joy of a quiet morning walk, The simple pleasure of sipping tea with a good friend, the comfort of losing myself in a book that stirs something within my soul, or the serene peace of simply being still, alone with my thoughts. These small, ordinary moments, once rushed through in pursuit of bigger things, have now become the foundation of my happiness. I've realized that true joy doesn't need to be grand or flashy. It's often found in the small, quiet instances that make up the fabric of our everyday lives. It's the moments that can't be bought, but are deeply felt. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment below to let me know that you are still here with me. The pursuit of simplicity has become the guiding principle of my life. I've come to understand that what we surround ourselves with, both materially and emotionally, can either weigh us down or liberate us. For so long, I was burdened by the clutter of possessions, both physical and emotional, that I thought would satisfy me, but only added to the noise of my existence. I used to fill my home with things, hoping that each new purchase, each new possession, would somehow fill a hole I could never quite define. But now, I've consciously chosen to release that need. I've decluttered my life in every sense of the word. I've pared down my belongings, keeping only those that bring me joy, utility, or a sense of calm. And in this process, I've found that the more I let go, the more freedom I have. No longer do I feel the need to constantly acquire, to chase after the next material possession or the next achievement. Instead, I found a quieter, more peaceful way of living, a way that no longer requires comparison or competition with others. I now appreciate the vast sense of relief that comes from simplifying, from focusing on what truly matters, rather than what the world says should matter. But it's not just my physical surroundings that I've simplified. My relationships, too, have transformed. I used to believe that having a large social circle, maintaining numerous acquaintances, and being liked by everyone were the key to a fulfilling life. I was trapped in the notion that I had to please everyone, that I had to be everything to everyone. But now, I see how draining that mentality was. I've learned to let go of relationships that no longer serve me, and that feel shallow or transactional. I've learned the importance of boundaries, of saying no when necessary, of choosing not to engage with people who don't bring positivity, authenticity, or true support into my life. I've discovered that the value of relationships doesn't lie in their quantity but in their quality. I now cherish the deep connections I have with a small group of people who share my values, who uplift me, and who bring a sense of true companionship and joy into my life. It's not about having many friends or acquaintances. It's about nurturing the relationships that truly matter, the ones that nourish your soul and bring out the best in you. This shift in focus, from the external to the internal, from striving to being, has transformed my life in ways I never thought possible. There is peace in my heart now, a contentment that comes from living in alignment with who I am, rather than who I thought I should be. The constant striving for more, the endless pursuit of achievement and validation, has melted away, replaced by a quieter, more intentional approach to life. I've realized that all the things I once thought defined success, titles, accolades, possessions, pale in comparison to the things that truly matter. Love, connection, inner peace, and the simple joy of being fully present in the moment. These are the treasures that cannot be measured, and that cannot be quantified. They can only be felt. And in that feeling, I found something far more valuable than any external achievement ever could provide. The quiet satisfaction of knowing that I am enough, just as I am. Now, I live my life with a sense of deep gratitude for the present moment. I no longer seek the approval of others, nor do I measure my worth by the standards the world sets. Instead, I focus on the things that bring me joy and peace. The soft moments of stillness, the intimate connections with loved ones, and the richness of simple experiences. This, to me, is true fulfillment. And in this simplicity, I've discovered a kind of freedom I never knew was possible. It is the freedom to just be, no more, no less. And that is a gift I will carry with me for the rest of my days. As I reflect on the lessons I've learned over the years, it becomes clear that the pursuit of happiness isn't about chasing after achievements, material possessions, or the approval of others. True fulfillment comes from the simple, quiet moments we often overlook, the ones that bring us peace, joy, and connection. It's about letting go of the clutter, both physical and emotional, and focusing on what truly matters. For me, it's the relationships that nourish my soul, the moments of stillness that allow me to connect with myself, and the freedom that comes from no longer living to anyone else's expectations. So, I want to ask you, what have you learned from this journey today? What is one thing that you can take from this video and put into practice in your own life? Whether it's embracing simplicity, focusing on the quality of your relationships, or finding peace in the present moment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please share one lesson you've learned and plan to incorporate into your life in the comments below. I read every comment, and I'm excited to hear how you're applying these ideas in your own life. If you enjoyed this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content on living your best life at any age. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.